Good morning, everybody, and welcome to today's information webinar, Equity, the Arts and Disability Associated Plan. This information webinar is specifically about request for tender information relating to the plan. My name is Zohar Spatz. I'm the Head of Community and Experimental at Creative Australia, and I'm joined by Natalie, our Auslan interpreter. Today's session, we're going to overview some key information relating to the request for tender. Then we're going to go through the specifics of both the National Arts and Disability forums and gatherings, as well as the request for tender for the Code of Practice. I'd like to acknowledge the many traditional custodians of country throughout Australia and honour their elders past and present. In particular, I am dialing in today from the lands of the Turrbal and Yagara people, and I would like to acknowledge their elders past and present, always was and always will be Aboriginal land. Some background information for you all. Thank you so much for joining us. This will be the first of two information webinars. The second webinar will actually be a Q&A with key partners where interested parties like yourselves will be able to reach out and ask questions specifically regarding the details of the request for tenders. The RFTs are also available on the Creative Australia website and AusTender website. All tenderers must read and respond to the official RFT document. Please note that this webinar should be considered additional information to the RFT document, and an easy read English version of the scope and deliverables for both tenders are available on the Creative Australia website. So in 2024, the Australian government released Equity, the Arts and Disability Associated Plan for the period of 2025 through to 2028. This plan is a 4-year roadmap to lay the foundations for greater equity in cultural and creative life for deaf and disabled artists and arts workers and audiences with disability. The plan has 3 key priorities, and they are: Priority 1, recognising deaf and disabled artists and arts workers as central to our vibrant arts and cultural sector. Priority 2, strong and inclusive governments and organisations. And priority 3, engaging the audience, fair, open and equitable access to arts and culture. The successful tenderers will work in consultation with the following federal government agencies and departments: the Office for the Arts, Creative Australia, and Screen Australia. Proposals will need to clearly articulate how the model for delivery will ensure the equity, inclusion, and representation of deaf and disabled Australian artists, arts workers, screen practitioners, game makers, and audiences will be supported. And tenderers should consider cultural protocols, disability cultural safety, access and inclusion, language, and geographical considerations when applying. I'd like to also clarify the relevant art forms and sectors that these tenders will be covered by. These will include visual arts and crafts, literature, music, both contemporary and classical, First Nations arts and languages, community and cultural development, the performing arts, and in addition, these tenders will also include festivals, galleries, libraries, archives and museum institutions, as well as screen and digital gaming. Let's get started. So the first tender is the National Arts and Disability Forums and Gatherings. These forums and gatherings will ensure deaf and disabled people in the arts connect and network. This includes people who work in screen and digital games industries. The forums will be a series of online, accessible, scheduled events. These will be held throughout 2025 and 2027. They'll be focused on formal discussions and information sharing on national disability-related issues in the arts and cultural sector, including the screen and digital gaming industries. The successful tenderer will deliver a series of disability-led, accessible online events throughout those 2 years, focused on disability-related issues in the arts and cultural sector, including, as I said earlier, the screen and digital games industries. We expect that these events will consider the following parameters: facilitate formal discussions and information sharing, support artistic exchange and networking, bearing in mind the forums are not market development events, and provide relevant content for emerging and established artists, producers, presenters, screen practitioners, and game makers. The gatherings. These will be in-person events held in 2026 and 2028. These will be focused on building wider sector awareness of the work being produced in the arts and disability space. The successful tenderer will deliver at least one in-person event in the years 2026 and 2028, and we expect that these events will consider the following parameters. They must take place in the same location, city or town, over the entire contract period. They must accommodate a minimum of 150 in-person delegates. There will be a sharing of program of live performances, screenings, exhibitions, and pictures. There'll be a facilitation of artistic exchange and delivery of capability programs to support emerging artists and producers, first-time attendees, First Nations delegates, and other target groups. The objectives for the tender, the National Arts and Disability Forums and Gatherings, are that participants will share knowledge, skills, and experiences, that they'll learn about the needs and opportunities in the disability art sector. They'll pitch or present work to grow networks and markets, and discuss how to get more people involved in the arts and disability sector. Creative Australia's budget for the National Arts and Disability Forums and Gatherings is $600,000 over the 4-year period, with the annual investment and payment schedule, as you can see below, reflecting the program activity. Creative Australia's investment is a contribution to the overall budget to deliver the National Arts and Disability Forums and Gatherings. It is anticipated that additional funds and in-kind support will need to be secured to deliver the arts forums and gatherings through a range of public and private partnerships. On to the second tender, the Code of Practice. The new National Arts and Disability Code of Practice or Guidelines will set the access and representation expectations for the arts, cultural, screen, and digital games sectors, recognising the environments these sectors operate in as workplaces. The aims of the Code or Guidelines are to promote fair, safe, and respectful workplaces for deaf and disabled artists, arts workers, screen practitioners, and game makers, to promote accessible participation in and access to the arts as audience members, clients, customers, workers, volunteers, and other parties. Support organisations to comply with legislative requirements and promote best practice. Promote best practice approaches for engaging with people who are deaf or have a disability. Promote best practice approaches to tackling ableism, improving accessibility, and driving equity for deaf and disabled artists and arts workers, screen practitioners, and digital game makers. Provide referral information for a range of government and non-government organisations. And the code or guidelines will be referred to from the websites and other platforms or materials from Creative Australia, Creative Workplaces, and Screen Australia. The successful tenderer will be required to propose content for the code or guidelines. These may include principles that underpin the code or guidelines, resources that support legal compliance and promote best practice. And these might include checklists, templates, and how-to guides. frameworks for self-assessment, and tools to support tracking progress, guidance for running accessible recruitment processes, guidance for developing accessible tender materials and grant applicant guidelines, information on specific topics such as art form areas, access requirements, and further resources as informed by the sector and community consultation. There are 4 phases to this project. The first phase is project planning, research, and consultation. The second phase is the creation of the code of practice. The third is the development of a monitoring and evaluation plan. And the fourth is the ongoing stewardship and maintenance of the code of practice. Please note that the 4th phase is optional as part of this request for tender process. So tenderers should quote for this phase separately as it will be contracted separately. Please go to the information on our website regarding this particular detail from the RFT. The budget will be a total of $250,000 over the 4-year period. So we have included the 4th phase in this breakdown, but please note that phase 1, 2, and 3 will be valued at a total investment of $100,000. And then each year after that, for the maintenance and stewardship, you will see $50,000 allocated per year in 2026, 2027, and 2028. That is a total, as I said earlier, of $250,000. Below are some key dates that you can see for both tenders. The request for tender opens, which is early February 2025. In late March 2025, approximately 8 weeks later, the request for tender close. And then we will undergo throughout April an evaluation where we hope to have notifications and contracting complete by the end of April 2025 to enable work commencing in early May 2025. For more information, we'd recommend that you must download the request for tender documents and easy read versions that can be found at the Creative Australia website, www.creative.gov.au. All inquiries regarding the request for tenders must be emailed to tenders@creative.gov.au, which is the same email address you will need to lodge your complete tender application. Please refer to the request for tender for lodgement details and instructions. We strongly advise you to check Creative Australia's website for any additional information or the addenda, which may be published while this RFT is open. That's it from me today. We hope that you've enjoyed this overview. Thank you for joining us. Please join us at our next webinar where you will have the opportunity to ask us any questions. I will be joined with representation from the Office for the Arts, from Screen Australia, and from Creative Workplaces. I look forward to seeing you then. Please keep an eye out on our website for more information about the time and date and registration details. Thank you.